So Greg, we've touched on how the funding for greyhound racing in Australia is so different, and most of that comes through TAB, which is essentially, for those who don't know, it's a bit like our tote, and that really dominates your betting market over there, less so than perhaps before. But just explain how the whole betting scenario works over there compared to here, and how you get your income to greyhound racing, and how much that is.
Okay, we have what's called a racing joint venture, and that's with the TAB, as you say. It comes up for renewal in 3 years' time, so the posturing's starting. But basically, that provides us with we share in the venture with them, so we get a percentage based on our turnover. And our greyhound racing turnover is about 23% of the total racing betting in Victoria, our state. So out of every $100, 23 is bet on greyhounds. About 60 odd is 63, 64 bet on racehorses, and the balance is bet on the trots, the harness racing. So we're number 2 in that picture. And so based on a percentage like that, we receive we enjoy the success of the TAB. It used to be 70-80% of our income used to come through that joint venture. But what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years is the growth in the corporate bookmakers has meant that we've grown a new source of revenue. We attract what's called a race field fee. So the Bet365 companies of this world, they pay for betting on our races. They'll pay us about 1.5% of their turnover, and that's built up because their success has been our success. Our revenue is about $100 million a year in Victoria, in our state, of which we pay about 50% of that in prize money. And then the rest of it goes to make sure the integrity, the welfare of our greyhounds, the integrity, the professional running of our organisation maintains that standard that we must maintain to make sure we've got the public's confidence and the government's confidence.
So I'm going to give you the comparison to here. We have a voluntary agreement, which, to be fair, is quite a new thing as well. This has recently been agreed by our new managing director of the GBGB, Mark Bird. 0.6% of turnover, and that's a voluntary contribution, so not all bookmakers pay it. I think next year, because we've just managed to agree it to come on online bets as well, we're hoping it might be somewhere in the region of 8.5 million.
Yeah. Well, Victoria alone is closer to 100 million, but we're selling our product worldwide as well. We're in the marketplace in America, throughout Europe, and we'll get extra revenue as we sell out. If greyhound racing is reducing in America as it is, we want to put our racing code here in Victoria, in Australia, on the TV sets or in the casinos in America, and earn another percentage of revenue.
Yeah,
so we're providing the product, we're spending the money on the product, and so we're trying to maximise our commercial opportunities for that product.
Yeah, forward thinking. Betting is very different there as well. I mean, we don't have so much on-course betting as we used to, but actually there it's really minimal, isn't it? People are betting on their phones, and of course you can go to the pub. Every pub you go to, you can have a bet in, which presumably generates you more income, because it seems to be even more of a cultural thing, betting in Australia, than it is here in the UK.
Yeah, probably you're right. The pubs here all have betting machines or operators, and you can put a bet on, and it's a sort of mate thing to do in a pub. When you're in the pubs, you'll have a beer and you might pool some money and have a bet together. And it's during the recent COVID situation, the pubs were shut, and the retail outlets, the betting shops, were shut. So the income went down, but online betting became bigger. People on their phones and on their laptops, and they had more time at home, and the actual revenue increased. But it's a different world over here in terms of the opportunities in your face all the time. But there is a change. There's a change away from onto the phones and tablets now. The retail outlets or the pubs, they'll probably decline. Even as a group at a pub, you might not walk over to a machine there. You might just get your phone.
Yeah.
So it's changing.
And how does it affect crowds? I mean, obviously I came to the Melbourne Cup and you had a huge crowd, but what about the run-of-the-mill meetings? Do you get crowds at all?
Yeah, we do. It's an interesting, we because of our revenue base is pretty good, we subsidise our meals. and we subsidise with high customer service. One of the jobs of the clubs is to change perceptions on greyhound racing. I think people, when they come to Sandown and they see the quality of the venue, or they go to the meadows, or they go to some of the country tracks, and they see the quality of the venues, it changes perceptions. And then one of the roles of the clubs is to change perceptions, because that's what we're up against. We need, in Australia, like everywhere else in the world, it's a numbers game. It's getting the support of the government. And the way you get the support of the government is the support of the people. So Greyhound Racing Victoria spent a lot of money, a lot of staff, a lot of money on making sure the integrity of our sport, the welfare side of our sport, is number one priorities. Without that, we don't have the government's favour, we don't have the public's favour, and greyhound racing will cease. So there's a lot being done in that area, and the clubs have to play their role. They put on a lot of events. We have a lot of events for children and families and clubs and groups, and they do come in their numbers. And clubs like Sandown, the Meadows, they race 104 times a year. Well, 30% of those will be an occasion, and they'll put something on, and they are subsidised too. And when you subsidise it, people see the value for money. They come and we change their perceptions, and that's one of the roles of the clubs.
How does it filter down to prize money? Obviously, the Melbourne Cup, I'm sure you'll tell me how much it's worth now, but I know it's an incredible amount of money. And also to the lower end races, we call them our graded races here. What's the prize money?
Well, in Victoria, it's around $50 million. And then around Australia, I'm not sure the total figure, but New South Wales would be similar. And then we've got Queensland and other states. And the prize money, an average city race, is the winner gets about 5,000 Australian dollars. But then we have a lot of group races. And the lowest, at the other end, the country standards race is $1,400 to the winner. But we also have transport money. So every trainer who brings his dog to the track receives $80 when he arrives, and that's his transport. And we're making sure that we keep a wide base of people in our sport. The backyard trainer is just as important to us as the big stable, because we need a base of people involved. And we've got plenty of people in our state who train 1 or 2 dogs in their backyard. Now, they're still subject to the same inspections of their kennels and their facilities, and how they must, the code of practice and how they look after their dogs and everything else. Yeah. We have a lot of officers who go out and examine every property, from the properties with term dogs to the properties with 1 dog. And that's a very important part of being totally transparent with the RSPCA over here, the animal activist groups. We have all of that work that we do on a welfare front, and we lay it bare every year in our annual report, exactly what's happening in our sport. So we're totally transparent. That's a really important part of maintaining the government's confidence and making sure that our industry not only survives, but prospers.
So $5,000, your base rate prize money. I think our lowest sort of prize money would be around £60 for a low graded race. It might even be lower than that in places, but it's very comparison.
Yeah. Look, it's a different funding model.
It is.
The bookmakers and the tab know they've got to contribute, and it works for horses as well. Our prize money in our horse racing, our greyhound racing, our harness racing would be, as good as anything in the world, probably barring Hong Kong or Japan, but certainly greyhound racing would be nothing like it,
And how does it filter down, Greg, to the trainers? You mentioned they get bits of money here and there, but in terms of kennel bills, do they charge their owners a fee per day, or how does that work?
No, not at all. We very much work on a 50-50 basis. So we encourage ownership. We've encouraged syndications. We work very hard on ownership because, again, that broad base of people involved in our sport is going to cost. The numbers are very important for government to understand the depth of our industry. If I may just, a little bit, we had a problem in New South Wales, our sister state, where the Premier said he didn't like greyhound racing, and he said, I'm stopping it next year. Well, he got thrown out of government because the numbers in the country and regional areas were so in favour of greyhound racing and thought they were being attacked. The regional areas felt that their livelihood or their culture was being attacked, and he got thrown out of government. So that's important that we maintain our broad base of people involved through ownership and trainers. So what happens if you own a dog or you buy a syndication share? you give it to a trainer, you go 50-50. If there's a $5,000 prize, 2.5 will get sent to him and 2.5 will get sent to the owner. And
there's no
he doesn't
bill to pay for the owner.
No bills. There's no bills at all. You have a rehoming contingency. There's a responsibility back on the owner to rehome, and they all know that. That's a very, very important part of the system that we have here, the rehoming, and the owners understand that. But you'll find with syndications, and we've found this already, with syndication, amongst the 10, 20 people in the syndicate, there'll be someone there who wants a dog. If not, our GAP program is extremely strong.
Yeah, we'll touch more on that later. Do you have a lot of trainer-owned dogs then?
Yeah, we do. We have owner trainers. But an owner trainer might have a couple for himself, and he then realise, that he needs financially improve his kennel, and he'll take on owners. Yeah, there's a mixture. There's certainly a lot more professional trainers. The bigger ones are all professional, and they race for owners pay the original bills, because if you buy a young pup for $3,000, by the time he gets to the racetrack, you're talking $15,000 or $17,000.
Yeah.
With all the rearing and the preparation to racing, and the minute that $17,000 is spent, from that minute on, you've got to win $34,000 to break square, and that's what's happening over here with the good prize money and your well-placed dogs and the opportunities, because we have 23 race meetings a week in our state, and we're looking to expand that to 24 and 25. So there's an opportunity for our dog population to race anywhere and get some prize money and some travel money. And they do. They'll race at one track one day and 5 days later somewhere else, and they move around. And we have a grading system that allows them to go up and down the grades and compete against a dog of similar ability. And that's really important as well, for also not only them to give them a chance to win money, it's very important for the punting dollar that we've got some even fields, so that the punters can use their skill and back a winner. And that encourages the form guides and the social media discussion on greyhounds, and the betting side is enhanced by that.
Again, that's a stark difference to here in the UK, in that you've got 23 tracks racing, so 13 tracks 23 times a week. Our tracks race far, far more than that, maybe have 4 or 5 meetings a week each. So we have less funds, less resources being spread much more thinly than you have. My final question here on this part is, and it's a tricky one, but obviously to implement it would have to be very different. But do you think there's any way that your model can be implemented here at all, albeit if it's not done at a government level? Do you think that, there's any way that we can get those sort of levels of money in, or is that unlikely?
Well, you would hope that the appetite of the betting agencies is to make sure the survival of their product, and it's beholden on them to invest in their product that they're making money out of. Now, if you say it's not compulsory, well, look, I know the bookmakers here pay a race fields fee to horses, harness, and to greyhound racing, but they'll get free betting on the NBA or American sport, for example. Therefore, they'll promote that more than us because they're not paying the race fields fee.
Yeah.
So you've got to, they've got an obligation, if they want to lay the odds, to pay the people who are running the sport. And perhaps, we're blessed, and I think in your case, it's not good. And if they start losing product, I know there's been an interesting time, Julie, that we've been through over here in that, again, during that COVID period where there was no sport. Betting on greyhound racing went right up. As sport came back in, the younger generation stayed with our sport, stayed with greyhound racing. We didn't lose a lot quickly that you thought you might when American sport or our own sport over here come back online. And I think that's because greyhound racing is a fast, quick payout, no correct weights, no protests, and it's all over in 40 seconds. And I think that's attractive to the younger generation.